Ladies, Mary.
Hey, yes.
There you go. Didn't see you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our training and fellowship session here. Here's the kind of an idea. I'm Mark Holdeman, the new director of leadership training, and I've got you automatically muted. So if you need to speak up or jump in, please feel free to unmute yourself. Here's kind of how the evening is going to go. We're just kind of get things going. I have a short introductory session here, but what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms fairly quickly. We assume that everybody has already watched their each of their videos on the YouTube leadership channel site for your training. The breakout sessions are for if you have any questions about specific to your job. You have a representative with you in each of the different areas, secretaries for secretaries, presidents for presidents, et cetera, that you can address specific issues with. We will be recording both the entire session here and the breakout rooms so that people who are unable to attend tonight because of Passover or some other reason can go back and have access to all of the questions and all of the training that anybody else can. So anything else that anybody, Russ, would you want to, as president, make any kind of introductory comment before we get going?
Well, I'm so glad that we can work together to bring services in this time of COVID. We have a wonderful board that cares so very much for each and every person. And we're just so glad that you're on the call with us, and we look forward to sharing information with you.
Great. Well, remember everyone, once you go into your breakout sessions, this is for the leaders, to start your recording. And at that, now let me go ahead. I will open up these breakout rooms. And you can go in wherever you like. So please feel free. And these breakout rooms will be open for an hour, at which point they will close. And you'll come back here, and then we'll have a short presentation with Jason Whitney for the new director of, what's the new title, Katie? The director of
It's Next Generation Coordinator.
Next Generation Coordinator. I kept wanting to say youth, and I knew that wasn't right. So Next Generation Coordinator. So, and he's got a presentation for all of us tonight. So feel free to join your breakout rooms, and we'll see you back here in an hour.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, sir. No,
How do I get to a breakout room? I was expecting.
you should have an option there that shows the rooms. Hang on a second.
I don't doubt that. It's just, where is it? That's all.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
Lindsay's helping me out.
Who do you need to assign?
Bob. I can assign him.
Okay, so
Yeah, where do you want to go?
assign
Where do you want to go, Bob?
I guess to marketing.
Okay, I will send you there. So hang on.
Then I want to come back for the joint session after as well.
Yeah, it'll bring you
you?
back.
He's got like
Okay.
4 people in the
Okay.
main room who have joined sessions.
Okay. And Don, you'll go to president, so I'll send you there.
Aha, didn't know where I was going.
Yeah, president. And Mac,
Don, I don't like to hear that.
you're muted, Mac. Yeah, sorry. Mhm.
Sorry.
Treasurer, please.
Treasurer?
Please.
Okay,
No.
you betcha, sir.
Don.
Thank you.
There you go. We should everybody.
I didn't see any other director.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I don't know who else is a leader in the group. So.
Yeah, let me look and see if there's anybody. Yeah, just you and Katie. You're the only ones in there.
Yeah.
So, well, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had some good sessions there. And what we're going to do now, Katie, I think if you don't mind, I'm going to have you introduce Jason,
Yes.
our Next Gen Coordinator.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. If you joined late or earlier or whatever, and you didn't get to see me, I'm Katie Dane. I'm the VP of Music and Performance for SWD. And I am very excited to introduce Jason Whitney, who is our Next Gen Coordinator and a music educator. And I met him a number of years ago at Harmony University, and he was there on a music educator scholarship. And he has basically bitten off like the barbershop bubble or whatever you want to say. He's just like dove right in and has gone to Midwinter. He's got barbershop groups at his school, and he is going to be presenting some information to us today about how we can kind of make more connections to our younger singers and to music educators alike. He has presented at Texas Choral Directors Association convention. And so he is very well respected amongst other educators and has a vast amount of choral knowledge as well as barbershop knowledge. So we welcome him to tonight's session. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Thank you, Katie. My barbershop knowledge only comes from Katie and the staff at HU the year that I went. She said a number of years ago, it was only 2019, which it feels like many years ago, but I'm really in only my second real year of being a barbershopper. And I kind of stumbled into this just randomly off of watching YouTube videos and then kids singing tags. And so I jumped in head first, went to Midwinter, and then went to Harmony U. And I'm really glad to be here, to be able to help bring barbershop to younger kids, to the next generation. And so I did present on this topic on benefits of barbershop harmony to the Texas Choral Directors Association this past summer. I also last February was able to actually have my my high school barbershop mixed chorus perform at the TMEA, the Texas Music Educators Association convention, to like a standing room only audience, and it was epic. Everybody loved it, and so I'm really hoping that we can get the ball rolling with barbershop in our schools and all that all that jazz. And so I'm going to try to see if I can share. I'm not that savvy with sharing PowerPoints in Zoom, so if I mess up, I apologize, but I think I'm going to do it right here. So, and I lost all your faces. No, I can see you guys. So I think the ways that we can connect with music educators, that's just like what I've titled this session, is key. I think music educators are the gateway to our youth. When I was at Harmony U, I was sitting in on a session on how to use your community as a way to improve your chapter. It was done by Dr. Shannon Jeffries from the University of, I think, Alabama, and she was talking about how she got her program started with barbershop. And there was a gentleman from a chapter, I don't know which one, who was talking about how, barbershop chapters aren't there to like take the kids. They're there to get them after they finish high school or after they finish college, to get them in their chapters to continue singing for life. And that's my goal as a music educator, is I want my kids to sing for life. However, I find that one of my students is way more likely to go sing in a barbershop chorus for the rest of their life after high school than to go find some elite choral community ensemble. That's just my take on it. But I do know that in Texas, especially, because that's where my expertise is, that's where I've been teaching my whole life, it's really sometimes it can be difficult to kind of break in to the choral education environment, because Texas itself is such a powerhouse for choral music. And so my biggest thing is, if you're going to start reaching out with music educators, is to, one, I don't know if it's going to move to the next slide or not. Did it move to the next slide, or is it still on the first one? Nope, it's still. Trying to figure out how to get this over. Oh, there we go. Can y'all see the slideshow? Okay, there it went. So the first thing is to really just do your homework and find out about the choral atmosphere in that local district or that school that you're looking at that's nearest to your chapter. Two things that just come to my mind right off the bat is this district or school competitive in fine arts, and do the programs lack administrative support? I come from a district where there's 6 high schools. We're very pro fine arts. We're very as choir educators, we are expected to have students in these competitions, students making the all-state choir, the all-region choir, our sweepstakes at UIL. We're expected to have all these things required of us, and so that kind of puts a lot on our plate. And so, but that can also be a good thing, meaning that you have a driven director. You've got someone in there who is going to maybe take on doing barbershop, or maybe take on a collaborative effort between your chapter and their choir program. And then also, do the programs lack administrative support? This is common in many areas, that fine arts does not have as much administrative support as we all wish it would have. And I'm going to talk about ways that you can be an advocate for your local school district or local choir program to help them gain that administrative support, which can then help you out. And so whenever you're making initial contact with a director, you got to put yourself in their shoes. As choir directors, we wear all of the hats. We are the CEO, the CFO, the head of recruitment, the guidance counselor, the secretary. We do all the jobs. This year I haven't had to do many because my school district in particular has been pretty much, we're still like 90% virtually teaching throughout most of this pandemic. But once everything goes back to normal, this is kind of like what's going through our mind. We are preparing for our fall concert, our winter concert, our spring show, all region, all state auditions, musicals sometimes, administrative performances. I have a very pro fine arts principal who's like, go sing here, go sing there, go do this. We've got you this show here. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I think before COVID, my barbershop chorus performed at upwards of 14 events in our city, because they would call my principal and ask about us. And so we were like the talk of the town. And then so when you're thinking about reaching out, I really think that most choir educators would take on possibly learning barbershop, realizing that most of us only know barbershop, unless we grew up singing in chapters or with barbershop in our families. Most of us, like me, only know barbershop as, singing Down by the Old Mill Stream, or, any of the polecat songs that you would find. That's what we see as barbershop. Before I went to YouTube and saw groups like Main Street performing pop song medleys and Lunch Break doing comedy skits, and like, oh wow, that's hilarious, that's funny, that's great stuff. It was contemporary, it was relatable for me and my students, and so that was like kind of like the segue to kind of bring them into the barbershop world. So when you're approaching these directors, we're kind of wrapped up in all of this stuff. And I think the last thing we want is to have someone be like, oh, hey, have you thought about barbershop? I mean, that's my goal as the Next Gen coordinator, is to get some educators realizing how barbershop can benefit them in their programs. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. But how can you make initial contact? Reach out to a choir director, find out where they're at, call the school district, call the front office, say, hey, can you put me through to the choir director? Most of them have a direct line, and just, introduce yourself. And maybe, I think the first thing that you might want to ask is, can you perform for their students? If you have a local quartet, a chapter quartet, or a chapter chorus that can meet up, go to the school one day, do a small little 20-30 minute performance for the students. Maybe the best thing to do would be like just to kind of like expose them to barbershop and what it is, and sing for them. Anytime a university or somebody calls me up and says, hey, can we come perform for your students? I'm like, yes, please. It will get me out of a day of teaching, and then they'll get something out of it, But it's because we want that enrichment for our kids. We want them to have that exposure to other kinds of music. I am 2 hours from the nearest chapter. Since I'm at the very bottom tip of Texas in Brownsville, I'm 2 hours from the Corpus Christi chapter, and then 4 hours from the San Antonio area. And so it's really hard for barbershop groups to come down and perform for my kids, but God willing, one day we're going to get someone. So my advice would be to reach out, perform for their program. And then if you're going to do that, if that's something that is possible with that director, teach them a tag, get it interactive with the students, depending on the level of the program, how successful or what the enrollment's like. You might be able to teach them a 4-part tag and have them all do it together, or you might teach them melody and you sing around it. Either way, getting them involved will get that barbershop bug, or to bite them, because that's how it did it with us. We sang, our first tag was Sleepy Time. That was the first tag I ever did with my boys, and we probably sang that tag straight 45 minutes that entire class period, after we learned it, taking rotations to do it in our own quartets and just to kind of like perfect it. And man, we locked and rang that first chord. That was it. That was a done deal. It was signed, sealed, and delivered, and we were off and running on our barbershop journey. And here I am, 3+ years later. But I think the most crucial thing, and I bold and underlined it here, is we as choir educators, music educators, need to see how barbershop is going to help our program. And that's hard because, as far as I know, there are not a lot of public schools doing barbershop, at least to the effect that I am doing it with my students. Because I have found, after going to Harmony U and after having spoken with a bunch of barbershoppers like Katie, that there's a lot of benefits other than just making music that we can have in our programs. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back here before I step forward. After you make that relationship with that choir director, after you reach out and you kind of tell them who you are, or let's say the performance goes well, or that seems really interesting to the students, I think cultivating that relationship with music educators is extremely important. And I've kind of thought up of a few ways that that I wish I had, or things that I wish I had, or things that have happened for me for my choral program that have helped me. And that is having you guys become an advocate for their program, either by attending their concerts. That could be another way to make an initial contact. Attend their fall concert or their winter concert. Introduce yourself afterwards. It was a lovely performance. I'm so-and-so. I sing with a local chapter here. Can we perform for your students sometime? That's another way that you can make contact. Helping promote their program after, let's say there is a relationship that goes down the road, a way that you can help promote their program. I had someone from my church after I got my first teaching job, some lady from my church, I didn't know was a very influential person in my community, had actually written a letter to my principal after she had attended our fall concert and said, I just wanted to tell you that I attended Jason's fall concert with a Lopez High Choir program, and it was just spectacular. It was a wonderful group of students, very, compliments to my principal about how her school is ran and how her choir program is run. That sent her over the moon, and she called me about it the very next day and says, hey, I got a letter from so-and-so about your choir program. Talking about administrative support, kind of bouncing back to that topic, is good, is always good. Trying to, if you, even a simple letter to the principal or a phone call to the principal and saying, hey, you've got some great music things happening in your school. Principals love that stuff. I live to make my principal look good, because as long as my principal looks good at my school, I am free to do all the things that I want to do. And Katie, I see smiling, but I think she understands that a little bit. And that's what my barbershop course has done. That's why every time we get calls, there's a district event, we're put up there front, because my principal is literally volunteering me right out the door, because barbershop is fun, first of all. And I don't think I've ever seen someone not smile when they heard that first ringing chord to any kind of barbershop song. And so something else I thought of later on down the road, if you have developed a relationship with your local choral program, is to maybe do a joint concert or fundraisers. I don't know how that works. Depends on the school, depends on how everything kind of works out. But I think joint concerts could be great, where you have a local chapter quartet or chorus come in and do a few numbers on their concert, you know, whether as an opener, if you've got a group that can sing the national anthem really well. I open my concert with a national anthem at every fall, winter, and spring show, and maybe having them come in and do that to kind of like wow the audience. That's also good public exposure for you to a different crowd of people, and as well, it enhances their concert. But be careful not to like try to overshadow. Or I'm a choir director who is very open to a lot of things. I know that might not be the case all the time. And lastly, it should always be centered around the students. As music educators, we bring life into we teach because we know the positive impact that music makes on kids' lives, and we all sing barbershop because of the way it makes us feel and the impact that it has on our lives. And I think that when that message is seen and agreed upon, and it's clear that both sides, the choral educator and the chorus and the barbershop chapters, understand that it just helps make room for an endless possibility of growth. And that way, when those kids, if you can get that choir director to buy into teaching barbershop, which I'm going to talk about on this next slide, then those kids are going to grow up. Those kids are going to grow up wanting to continue singing it. And guess what I tell them? All right, well, since I live 2 or 4 hours away from the nearest chapter, I have students who do go out of town for college. They go to San Antonio, or they go to San Marcos, and I'm telling them, hey, there's this chapter, there's these things out there. It's possible for you to go and sing somewhere, if you want to keep doing it. Because I have so many of my former students on Facebook or social media saying, oh man, I miss choir, oh man, I miss this. And I'm like, go find somewhere in your local area to go sing, okay, because they're there, and stuff. And so going into the next slide, I think that the biggest misconception, and why some choral educators, when I first approached it, or talked about it with other colleagues of mine, and their initial reaction was that barbershop singing doesn't utilize healthy vocal technique. I was among one of those believers when I first started it, after listening. And then I went to HU and was like, oh no, if not, it's better. It's even more healthy than what I was taught in college to teach to my students now. And having employed barbershop singing techniques has actually helped my choir program and my choir students become stronger, better singers. And that's something that I'm trying to work on among the choral world here in Texas. And I'm trying to make that movement happen, and that ideology. And I was fortunate enough to take a fellow choir director in my district to HU with us that one year, and he saw the benefits, and he's now employing that in his program, because it's helping out his program, and it's working. And I think when we see that, that's one of the big indicators that this is a great art form, because there is a lot of misconception in the choral world that barbershop does not use healthy vocal technique, and I think that ways that we can work around that from the chapter to choir educator perspective might be a little tough, and that might be a weird conversation, but there might be hesitancies towards that. There's also a misconception that it's for guys only, and many choir directors are unaware that mixed barbershop exists. I don't have the male student capacity in my choir program to support a male barbershop chorus. I could probably do a quartet, but quartetting in high school, it might be a little difficult depending on the piece. So I stick to chorus stuff, and I have a mixed barbershop group, and it helps. It really helps to be able to do that. But just being aware that those things exist, have helped me help other music educators start doing barbershop. I don't know how many people after our team A performance walked up to me and said, "Where did you find those mixed arrangements? Like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do to these voice parts? And you know, how did you transpose and all this other kind of stuff?" And thankfully, BHS is putting out a lot more catalog that's mixed, and that's a direct gateway to the choral classroom, is that mixed repertoire. And so some of the benefits for me is barbershop has made my choir students better listeners, and they're more excited about music in general. Better listeners because, I mean, you know, I'm like kind of preaching to the choir here. Like, for me, barbershop singing is probably the hardest singing to do. To do it in tune, to do it great, to make those chords lock and ring. That was literally the aspect that drew me into it. I was like, I want my choirs to be able to do that. And barbershop music has taught us how to do that. Okay. But again, I was someone who, like, the bug bit me naturally. You know, nobody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you should look at this." And so, so the skill that we've developed from performing barbershop repertoire, it had a direct impact on our choral music. Everything that we did, it had a direct impact on my kids as singers, and they enjoyed, they enjoyed singing more together, even if it was just our choral music, because their sound, their tuning, their confidence all got better. And then, of course, informing these choir directors about things like Midwinter and the Junior Chorus Invitational is something that I'm trying to spread into every person's ear. I'm like, you should do this. You need to do this. And maybe helping provide that kind of foundation. A lot of directors feel lost. I felt lost when I went to this because I went in knowing nothing about barbershop music. I had a mixed chorus that literally performed, you know, male arrangements in the actual given key because I didn't change them or transpose them. So I had my girls singing all the tenor part, you know, and my boys covering all the rest of the stuff. And so that was difficult for me because I didn't have the education that from HU that then taught me, oh, you know, you can do this and all these other kind of things. So I lacked that. A lot of directors don't know where to start in terms of, like, well, how do I even get started with barbershop music, and how do I look for repertoire, and what's easy out there. And, you know, the music education faculty at HU and Katie and everybody are all very adamant about getting those resources out to people, and have been creating these catalogs and these lists of good choral repertoire, or good beginning repertoire to get into the schools. And then, of course, if you can, you know, get the word out about Harmony University to these music educators, I think that that's also huge as well, to kind of get us started. At least I was already into it, and then I went to HU, and then I was like, now I'm even more into it, you know. But for speaking for a few of my colleagues who went without having any you know, knowledge about it, it was big for them. And
if I could add
feel
something
free to
real
stop
quick.
if you have questions. I know. Yes.
Okay, so I was just going to say, kind of tying into what you were saying, that if there is turnover in a program, this might be a conversation that continues to happen in a school. So even if you make one connection with one teacher, if that teacher goes away, you might have to do that same work yet again. But you mean, fight the good fight and keep spreading the gospel, right? But that's just something to kind of think about, as far as, you know, where you are in your community, where your chapter's located, what kind of resources are there. You know, talking to even the fine arts director as well as the choir directors. Don't forget about middle school. Like, you know, there's a lot of options and ways that you can make some of those connections with people. And then in the chat, I also added that March is Music in Our Schools Month, and that's nationally recognized. So that might be an opportunity for collaboration and support as you all are thinking about what you're going to be doing come 2021. That might be something that you could maybe plan ahead of time and be able to do some sort of collaborative performance with that.
Some questions that I got before today were, do choir directors have the authority to bring in outside folks to the music program? As far as visiting, I can't speak for every school, but generally, yes. However, that can vary depending on, a district and campus security protocols. At my campus, it just requires a visitor sign in. They just, you give them your ID at the desk, they scan it, you get a name tag, and then you can go in. Even with performing groups that have come to my school, that usually works. And so when it comes to bringing in outside folks, that is for me a yes. And maybe in special scenarios or circumstances, you might need principal approval prior to that, but I doubt that. And does their curriculum allow for non-UIL activity? That depends on, again, going back to doing your homework about the program and seeing what all that school does as far as fine arts goes. I have an extra choir class that's not a UIL choir class, and in that class we do all kinds of singing, barbershop being one of them. And then I actually have a group that meets after school. Most developed choir programs have what we call our public relations ensemble. It's usually like a pop group of some sort. A lot of them try to do a cappella pop because that's very popular these days. Or they do show tunes to backing tracks and stuff like that, or show choirs. And so we do have groups like that. I dabbled in all of them. I stuck with barbershop because it was literally the one that did the best, and also it's just really way more fun for me. And so many already developed choral programs do have those types of things in place. And then what kind of person is most likely to be successful in scheduling something with a choir director? Someone who is patient, welcoming, and who can empathize with the rigors of the classroom. I mean, I don't know how many times I might respond late to an email, or it might take me a day or two because, it just, patience is key. A lot of the times it can be overwhelming, especially amidst a pandemic, but, God willing, we're getting our way out of it, and so, again, yeah, I think patience is key, and also understanding, not being pushy on the subject, on whatever type of connection you're trying to make or collaboration you're trying to do, because in a normal year, I'm thinking about, did I get this bus? Did I request this bus by this deadline? Did I spend my budget money? My principal's asking me for a roster of kids to do something, and so I think patience is key, and again, welcoming. I couldn't really think of a least likely. I guess I would just say the opposite of those things. Someone who's very, demanding up front. Maybe might come off as impatient. I don't know, but that's what I have for that, and I can answer any questions if there's something Katie, if you feel like I maybe didn't touch on or I can expand on. I'm good at the question answer part.
Yeah. I would just say that, especially now, if you're trying to make some connections, just know that every school program is operating differently through the pandemic, where some people are trying to do hybrid teaching where they have people on Zoom and live in person, and they're trying to do both things at the same time. And some, like Jason, are 90% virtual and have very few kids in person. And some are the opposite, where, I know Anna ISD right now is can be completely unmasked, and they have almost all of their students in person. So you're going to have a very wide variety of what's happening right now. And so that's definitely going to impact what people are willing to be able and able to do at this time. But that being said, majority of the school programs between March and May tend to do some sort of a pop show as their final performance of the year. And so it is an opportune time to present, hey, do you know that there is free music available to you as an educator? Here's the link to the SWD website. Here's the link to the SAI website. Here's where you can download all this stuff for free and have access to it. And it includes digital learning media, that kind of thing. So some people don't even know that it's there. So if you can provide just a link and a resource and just a person that they can contact, that is almost enough to just get the foot in the door.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You said it so well. So like when I'm speaking from my point of view, it's for us. I mean, we've literally just been almost like just closed down like this entire time in terms of school. I do know that there are other programs that are just, it's almost like back to normal for them, and they're like only 4 hours away. And so this gives you a great time to plan for maybe how you want to approach the next school year. If you are in an area where, like mine, where we're just pretty much just trying to get these kids to pass and get them through the school year so that we can just wash all this away and start anew next year. But now would be a great time to do homework on those areas. I generally think at this point, a lot of choir programs going into the future are going to be rethinking how they did everything. I know for me in particular, this pandemic has pretty much wiped the slate clean, and so choir programs are rebuilding. They will be rebuilding. Some will have lost a lot of students or will be trying to recover those students. And barbershop is a great way to do that. It's just, I'm preaching to the choir, right? But that is honestly why I do it, because the kids love it. And at the end of the day, if it's going to turn them into lifelong singers, it will. I mean, I could do Mozart until the cows come home, right? But I doubt all my kids are going to go off and wanting to sing Mozart for the rest of their lives, But yeah, that's really just now would be a great time to start planning and to develop those roots and develop those relationships now with those educators. So as they have the summer to kind of think about how they want to do things, maybe your chapter chorus is meeting, I don't know. Maybe that would be a great time to invite them to one of a rehearsal of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what's going on in everybody's end of the world, but getting them involved in it, I think is what's going to make them buy into it a whole lot more. The one thing that I wrote it down on a Word document, but I didn't put it in the slide, was the hardest thing to do right now is to try to add something else onto the plate of these educators. I think that's the biggest thing. But if we can see the benefits of it, if we know that there's tangible benefits and something good will come out of it, they will be more inclined to want to do it. And that's all I have to say about that. Anybody else have any questions?
Jason, your slide presentation, can you send that out to me and I can post that to our YouTube channel as an attachment?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'll clean it up too and organize a little bit better, and then I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you, Jason. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think that gives us all some place to go and a good place to start.
I would like to second that, Mark. Jason, that was really good information. Thank you so very much for your talent and your willingness to share with us. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and no problem. And if anybody ever needs to email me, if there's a specific scenario or situation, that you have going on, please do. I can definitely help you work through that connection. Like I said, I'm in a very pro fine arts, very rigorous district, and so I understand what the full capacity choir director is going through, and I would definitely love to help you make that connection.
Hey, Katie, have we set him up with the district email?
I think so.
Yes. Isn't that right, Jason? Okay. Jason, I thought your presentation was boring and pedantic and condescending. No, I'm just kidding. No, really, this came up in my session with Bob, one of the guys, Bob Reckers from the Tidelanders, and Carol Carmichael. We talked about how to reach out through the Next Gen, and I think your information was just spot on. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. This is probably the first thing I think I've done in any capacity here, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous going into all of it. I mean, I still feel so young in this in my own barbershop upbringing and stuff, and I really do, like Katie said earlier, just want to spread the good word, and I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that if choral programs would invite it in and do it more, if we knew more about it, we would be doing it. And I mean, and that's gonna just it's gonna be the gift that keeps on giving.
Excellent. Well, with that, that's pretty much the end of the formal part of the program. Is there anyone who has any questions or concerns of a general nature? That since you've got most of your district board, your president and EVP and in front of you, that you'd like to address at this point?
Mark,
Yes, sir.
in the treasurer's meeting, we actually got on a subject that I think our chapters need to know about, and I'll probably be sending out something in the next few days to get people started. But one of the recent CARES Act changes, the updates on the $1.9 trillion of government money, we think there's a way for chapters who had a show in 2019 who are unable to have a show in 2020 may be able to get some free money from the government. So watch your emails for that. For anybody that's interested in researching that on their own before I contact them, it's called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grants, SVOG, Shuttered Venue Operators Grants, and it's administered by the Small Business Administration, the SBA. There's some pre-work that needs to be done. Every nonprofit performing arts group, it doesn't even have to be nonprofit, but performing arts groups who were unable to have a show may be able to apply, but they need a DUNS number, DUNS, Dun and Bradstreet, DUNS, and also a SAM application to get government funding, sam.gov. If you think that you want some free money, be watching for the email, but go ahead and start research on DUNS and sam.gov.
Good. It's good information.
Wait, just out of curiosity, do we have any idea what kind of funds we're talking about?
Yeah, it's you base it on show ticket sales and maybe program sales, not donated funds, but earned revenue. You can get up to 45% of the calculated revenue, lost revenue. And maybe up to 2/3 if there's money left over, you can go back for a second phase. It can be, you do look at your ticket sales and you get 45% of that in the first.
And that would be from one show? Like if we did 2 shows in 2019, we would have to apply twice?
No, it's not per show. It's basically, it's a calculation based on revenue by month. So you look at the months where you had your shows and you look at the total revenue in those months. And I'll be sending out calculations on how to calculate it, but it's based on a monthly revenue lost, if you will.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
To again, thank you and the leadership, sharing the ideas about how VM has met recently and had 80 people outside, and that Plano is having some, if you will, specially designed masks for singing, sharing solutions, and the transition. I think this collaboration will help everybody find better ways to bring people back to singing. So thank you.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what we're here for. And I think just opening the doors of communication through things like this can only help all of us to kind of come back through this transition and get back singing quickly and safely. So,
I was going to add also
yes.
that came up in the music and directors area breakout is that there are a number of chapters who have either not utilized Zoom very much or are kind of doing it throughout the pandemic or are not meeting at all. And so we were wondering if there are chapters that are welcoming guests to come in that are outside of their own chapter. If you have any open rehearsals or any virtual guest nights or times where you would like to do a joint rehearsal with chapters, we have a number of people who would like to be able to attend that, but they're not sure who to contact. So I'm going to put my email into the chat so that we can get that from you, or just email any of the leadership from the SWD, because there are some members that are in a chapter, but that chapter's not meeting and they're hungry to be together again with someone who's singing. So however we can help those people find a way to sing again and get together with some people in the district, we want to be able to provide them with some resources to do that.
Excellent. Absolutely. Yes. Well, does anyone else have anything that they'd like to chime in with before we wrap up? If not, Russell, do you have anything that any parting words of wisdom from the president?
Don't tell him he needs to unmute himself.
Yeah.
I like the way he's doing it now.
He's getting us all on the lip reading thing. That's like, yeah. Teaching us all how to lip read. Where are you, Russell? Let's see here.
I'm here. I'm
There
here.
you are.
Sorry.
Okay. I was going to.
There's a thing down at the bottom that says mute and unmute. It's a really cool button. But I wanted to thank everybody. I learned so much from so many different people tonight. Just things that maybe I'd heard of in the background, but Dawn, you brought up some good stuff. Jason, thank you, Dwayne, for your information. Wow. We need to get that out to everybody. That's what this is all about, is sharing ideas and trying to get our heads together and say, okay, what do we do here? What do we do now? And in the presidents, we were talking about starting now to start processing, start thinking about what we're doing. Gosh, Scott, that was a great job you did with that. So I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to hear Gary's work. And Katie, I'm sorry I missed yours as well. But I just want you to know our board is so talented with some really dedicated people. So please feel free to reach out in between these calls and with any one of us, and every one of them will return your calls and help you in any way that we possibly can, because that's what we're here for. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Well, and the good news is if the technology that we have planned works correctly, we should have all of the breakout rooms as well as this general session up on the Southwestern District Leadership Training YouTube channel within the next week or so. So if you were, for instance, in the president's room and would like to see what the secretaries talked about, or if you're in the music room, wanted to hear what the presidents talked about, you should have the opportunity and the chance to go back and check that out. And for those of you who are in chapters where some of your officers weren't here or able to attend tonight, encourage them to go check that out too, because there's a lot of good information that we've been through tonight. So with that, hope everybody stays safe, and we can get back to singing pretty quickly. Thank you all very much for being here, and we will be in contact with you soon via email for the next in one of these sessions. But thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. Katie, too.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Good to see you, Carol.
Good to see your pretty face.
You too.
How come you didn't say I had a pretty face? Come on.
Oh, so